review the rules for the forum tonight because some of you are new to the room. I'm not going to go through the whole in shorthand. Tonight's forum features Dave Senjem and Judy Ohly for the Senate 25 seat. Our rules for tonight are that each candidate will have 1 minute to offer an opening statement. The candidates will then respond in turn to questions provided by the League of Women Voters of Rochester, the Rochester Post Bulletin, the Rochester Chamber of Commerce, and the audience. Candidates will have 1 minute each to answer, and then you will have 1 minute each to make a closing statement. During the event tonight, you have in front of you 3 rebuttal cards. So that means you can use each rebuttal card 1 time. You have 3 opportunities to make a rebuttal. Hold up the card, and you'll get a 30-second chance to rebut. Only 1 rebuttal card per question. I want to remind the audience to keep your electronic devices turned off, or silenced at least, so that they do not disturb our recording tonight. The candidates have drawn numbers to determine the order in which they will speak, and Ms. Ohly will begin with her opening statement.
Good evening. My name is Judy Ohly, and I'm a candidate for Senate District 25. I'm a small business owner. I have 7 years banking experience and have been involved in real estate for 29 years as an agent, a broker, a manager, and a rental property owner. I've been married to my soulmate, Lou Ohly, for 25 years, and I've been an Olmsted County Commissioner for 8 years. 6 of those years, people have been asking me to run for state senate. People want and need a senator that will put the community's interests first. Now, according to the Legislative Research Library, we just had one of the worst sessions in Minnesota history. When compared to other regular sessions, it was the second longest since 1880, with the least amount of bills signed into law. Add to that the longest state shutdown in Minnesota history. That cost us millions of dollars, and you can understand my decision. We need to start focusing on what people in the community care about. I know we can do better, and it's time for a change.
Thank you, Mr. Senjem.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you to the League. Thank you for the sponsors. Thank you for the audience. And thank you for the television audience. My name is Dave Senjem. I have served in the State Senate since 2003. I came to Rochester in 1964 with Mayo Clinic, spent my working lifetime there, was involved in a great number of community activities through the years. Served on the Rochester City Council, and of course in 2003 served in Minnesota Senate. During that period of time, I have served in a variety of roles there, minority leader, majority leader more recently. In addition to that, I've served certainly on the tax committee, which is a major committee in the state of Minnesota. And above that, I think, as I think about my candidacy, it's not about what you've done, but about what you're going to be doing in the future. I have a deep and abiding pride in this community, and a deep and abiding commitment to doing what's right for this community. That's why I want to return to St. Paul. That's why I'm here tonight. That's what I hope to accomplish when we elected.
Thank you. Our first question comes from the League of Women Voters, and we'll begin with Mr. Senjem. Do you see a need to improve election procedures in Minnesota? If so, what measures would you take?
Well, I think number one, we need to fix what I'll call the Dennis Hansen matter, and that will be done certainly next year. No question about that. But in addition to that, you may be referencing the photo ID idea. And with respect to photo ID, I don't see anything wrong with showing an ID when you vote. It simply proves that the person's voting is the person who should be voting. I think that's fundamental to our society in terms of honesty and integrity in our election system, and I don't see any problem with that, and I support it.
Thank you, Ms. Ohly.
Well, as you probably know, counties are in charge of voting. And when we had a constitutional amendment that was brought before us, I took it personally. And I asked our property records and licensing folks to tell me what kind of fraud that we had in the last election. And the only fraud we had was none. There was nobody that impersonated anybody in the last election. Now, there were some felons that voted that shouldn't have voted, but other than that, there was no fraud. The amendment as it sits today is very concerning because it makes no provisions for folks like veterans, people that are not able to get out and vote, And we are the only state in the United States that has a constitutional amendment that is that restrictive when it comes to voter ID. And I really hope that it's defeated this year.
Thank you. Rebuttal?
Only to say, what people of Minnesota will be voting on this year is whether or not you show a photo ID and whether or not that ID is free in terms of cost. There is nothing more that has been decided about that provision at this point. If it is approved by the voters, at that point the legislature will work through its normal statutory processes, including subject to veto by the governor, to implement the provisions which will implement photo ID. So people can talk, but really nothing is for certain.
Yes. Rebuttal?
When it comes to free, it's not free. It will cost the counties. It will be another unfunded mandate for the counties. It will cost millions of dollars to implement this. It's not free. And for people to say that we should be cutting our budgets and then saying that this is free, it's wrong.
I'll play one.
No, sorry, only one per question. Sorry. Oh man, this is better than I thought. Okay, our next question, also from the League of Women Voters. What legislative measures would you support to promote economic development of Greater Minnesota? And we're going to begin with Mr. Senjem.
Well, we've done a lot of things certainly in terms of job credits and investment tax credits, and we'll continue to do that. We need to let those work. I've got a historic tax credit bill, which I have passed last session. We extended that. And interestingly, the report on it did create over 400 jobs. But as we think going forward, and particularly of this community, we're talking about something not related to sales tax, but a destination medical center. There's legislation that's going to be needed to enhance what's going to be happening in Rochester in the next couple of decades, probably. And I look forward to working with the tax committee and making a lot of those provisions happen.
Thank you, Ms. Ohly.
Yes, when it comes to jobs, we need to have legislation that creates jobs by promoting policies that are good for small business and entrepreneurs. But in addition to that, when it comes to jobs, what we do in Rochester really does have a direct reflect with all of the outlying communities, because so many people do commute all the way from Owatonna, from the Twin Cities, from south and from the east. So the jobs that we are able to create in Rochester will help everyone in southeastern Minnesota.
Any rebuttal?
Do I play the card if I want? Or?
Yeah. I'm just asking if you have a rebuttal. You don't have to.
Well, I'll play that second,
Okay.
Because I think this is really an important question and what we're really all talking about here, and that's jobs and how do you create jobs. And I will tell you, we need to create jobs by looking at our tax climate, because it's not good in Minnesota. We need to look at our regulatory climate, because there's work to do there. And of course, we can never forget workforce. Workforce is vital to job creation in Minnesota. We've got to make sure that's strong and healthy, but mostly of all, it's tax climate. That's what keeps jobs from growing in Minnesota.
I get a rebuttal.
Yes, you do.
When it comes to taxes, from 2004 to 2012, we had the largest property tax increases in our history, with an average total increase of $370 million per year. The 9 years prior to that, we had an average that had about $107 million a year. So much for the truthness of no new taxes. We really need to give property tax relief to the people in our communities all the way throughout the state.
Thank you. Our next question will be offered by the Post Bulletin, and we'll begin with Ms. Ohly.
Hello. On November 6th, voters will vote on 2 constitutional amendments, the Marriage Amendment and the Voter ID Amendment. If elected, would you support putting additional amendments before the voters, and if so, which ones?
Yes, I would support an additional amendment, and that additional amendment would be that any constitutional amendments would take a super majority to get on the ballot. Right now, it's just a majority, and that's why we have these amendments that that are confusing people and that are bad, that really don't belong in our Constitution at all. And I would like to see those being used very sparsely in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Senjem.
I would simply say that we don't need a constitutional amendment to do what Commissioner Ohly has suggested. We can do that by law. Frankly, we can do that by rule in the Senate. So that's not necessary that go to a constitutional amendment. And then to your question, I would simply say that I don't have any ideas in terms of additional constitutional amendments. I think we're at about where we ought to be. The public's taking on 2 this year. Next time around, I don't think there's any on the plate that we need to think about or even talk about at this point.
Any rebuttals? I would like to remind you that you each only have 1 card left. Our next question comes from the Post Bulletin. We'll begin with Mr. Senjem.
Governor Dayton said he plans to bring his proposal to raise income taxes on state's highest income earners. Do you support this plan? Why or why not?
I don't support that plan. The governor suggested a $4 billion tax increase for the people of Minnesota, and it's those people that right now are paying at 7.85. He wants to take it to 10.95. That would simply be job killing for Minnesota. Not only big business, but small business. It would be counterproductive to economic growth in our state. I would not support that. We ought to live within our means. Our means suggest going forward that we're going to have $2 billion extra to spend over and above the current biennial budget. That ought to be enough. We ought to be able to live within that.
Thank you, Ms. Ohly.
Those are in direct conflict with what I've been hearing. I heard that we're going to have a $1.1 billion deficit. You add inflation to that, plus you add the school payback, and we're at $4.4 billion. We only have 3 ways that we can deal with taxes. We can cut budgets, we can raise taxes, or we can promote jobs. Now, we can promote jobs, but that's not going to take care of that $4.5 billion deficit. We have to have sensible and fair tax reform. And I was talking to Senator Bach, and he said that's what's going to be happening, and we need people at the table that are going to be interested in having that conversation and that will negotiate and compromise.
Thank you. Any rebuttal? Our next question comes from the Chamber of Commerce. We'll begin with Mr. Senjem.
This question is related to the budget. What 2 specific ideas do you have to reduce the cost of government?
I think, thank you for that. I think number 1 is simply just looking at efficiencies from the standpoint of how we do things. And in a bigger, colossal way, do we need a Department of Human Services and a Health Department? Do we need a Department of Commerce and a Department of Labor and Industry? Do we need a DNR and a PCA? I think there's a lot of room there to look at those kind of things that administratively streamline. From a functional point of view, they do a lot together anyway. So let's just look at streamlining. But above and beyond that, in terms of additional cuts, I think you simply look at those budget items that you can deal with from the standpoint of making those cuts without inordinate pain. And that's not always easy, but we do it, and we've done it routinely. We've had to do it facing a $6.2 billion deficit.
Thank you, Ms. Ohly.
Yes, counties have been taking this very seriously because, as you probably know, 2/3 of the state budget is in education and health and human services. And so all 87 counties have been working on how we can do different things and achieve the same outcomes or better outcomes. And we've had legislation up at the state for 2 years called the MAGIC Act, and that stands for Minnesota Accountable Government and Collaborative Act. And for 2 years, we haven't been able to get it passed. Now, this legislation would replace mandates with measurements and outcomes. And we feel that this will make a huge difference when we talk about the future of the money that we need to perform these services. It will eliminate duplication and fraud, and it'll cut red tape. It's something we really need to do.
Thank you. Any rebuttal? Our next question, again from the Chamber. We'll begin with Ms. Ohly.
What would be your top priority if you are elected or re-elected?
Well, the MAGIC Act certainly was something that I would be very interested in having done right away because we've lost 2 years. But more important than that, the jobs. Every year, Olmsted County sends up $90 million more than we get back in aid. And we feel that Mayo Civic Center really needs to get funded in this next session. The governor wants it done. I feel that we need to have it done. Mayo Civic Center expansion is estimated to have a $30 to $40 million in annual economic impact and deliver approximately 800 permanent jobs. This will be huge for our community, and that's one thing that I'd certainly try to work on right away.
Mr. Senjem?
And certainly the top legislative priority for any legislator going to the state capitol next session will be certainly the budget. That is a huge, big issue, not easy to put together. Putting together something like that with 201 legislators with all different ideas is a work of art, I will tell you. But it needs to be done, and it needs to be done in a way that doesn't raise taxes. In addition to that, relative to Mayo Civic Center, we worked on Mayo Civic Center during the course of last session. We had it in our bill. We passed it out of 2 committees. It didn't go through the House. The House was more interested in restoring the Capitol. Not a bad project, but there was not room in the House bill for that Civic Center, or for that matter, any other Civic Center. So this going forward, is it certainly a priority? I'm not going to suggest it's a priority, but certainly it's on the list and in terms of something we look at down here. And then moreover, one of my priorities, just looking to the west, is Highway 14. Extending that Highway 14 from Dodge Center to Owatonna. That's a critical artery for economic development in our area of the state. I think it needs to be done, and we need to put some more emphasis on that.
Thank you. Any rebuttal?
Yeah, I'd just like to add something with regards to Highway 14. As Olmsted County Commissioner, we are part of the Highway 14 project, and it is very important that we get that 4-lane complete. And in looking at the organization, I noticed that there is only one township that is involved with that organization right now to promote it. We need every township between Dodge Center and Mankato and Rochester to be involved with the partnership. Every business, every city, if we're going to make it happen.
Thank you. Further rebuttal? All right. Our next question from the audience, and we're going to offer this first to Mr. Senjem. Recently, a CPA publication ranked states by favorable business climate. Minnesota ranked near the bottom. What should be done to provide a more favorable business climate in Minnesota?
I don't think there's any question about it. We've got to look at our tax rate and reduce it as we can, but certainly not grow it, as the governor has suggested. So just looking at where we are, it's live within your means and reduce that tax rate. I will tell you, I've had the opportunity as a leader in the legislature to talk to many of the not only the corporate leaders, of course, in Minnesota, but you can just go to any small business person anywhere that you want and talk to them about taxes and the counterproductive aspect of those taxes relative to competition with other states. You know, why do we have flight of Minnesota businesses out of our state? It's the tax rate. Why did Northwest Airlines and Delta happen to merge and go to Atlanta? It's a difference between 9.8% on a corporate tax rate and 6%. It's not rocket science. We've got to look at this and we've got to look at it hard. Fortunately, the surpluses that we have now enable us to do that. And we'll be doing that as we look forward, certainly in the next session.
Thank you, Ms. Ohly.
Yeah, there's no doubt about the fact that we have to put all taxes on the table and take a really good look at all of them. But there's a couple things that I wouldn't do that were done in the legislature last year. To cut red tape for corporations to come to our states, I would not have lifted the environmental agency protection on new coal-burning power plants. And I would not have asked our legislature, or I wouldn't have passed a bill that would eliminate language that protects the Mississippi River. 11% of the private business in the state of Minnesota has to do with tourism. And when it comes to our environment, there are no do-overs. We need to get this right.
Thank
I'll
you.
play the last one.
There you go.
Yeah, and I will simply say that the Minnesota legislature has absolutely no jurisdiction, no authority, can provide anything but just verbal direction to the Environmental Protection Agency. That is a federal agency. We are not in a position at all to deal with whatever the Environmental Protection Agency wants to do. They operate under federal law, not Minnesota law, we have nothing to do with them from the standpoint of being able to influence their actions.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the audience. We'll begin with Mr. Senjem. What specific cuts or rebalancing can be done to the state budget, or is there a need for more revenue? If there's a need for more revenue, who should it come from?
Well, as I said earlier, we're going to have an additional $2 billion of new revenue. The revenue coming into this budget period that we're just concluding now is $33.8 billion. We're going to have projectedly $35.8 billion coming in the 14 and 15 year. We ought to be able to live within that, and frankly, maybe we ought to be able to live with less than that. But I don't think there's any reason to think that we can't move Minnesota forward with $2 billion extra dollars of resources that we can use for whatever is deemed appropriate, whether it's health and human services, whether it's K-12 education, whether it's higher education. I would certainly lean in that direction of higher education. But we've got extra money. I think we ought to be able to live within the framework of that extra money.
Thank you, Ms. Ohly.
To say we have extra money when we know that we're going to have a $4.5 billion deficit simply is not true. That's like saying that you have extra money in your checkbook when you get your statement and then find out that you have outstanding checks. It's not true. What we're going to have to do is have all the taxes on the table and take a good, clear look at where we need to make changes, and then have people at the table that are willing to negotiate, communicate, and compromise.
Thank you. I would ask for rebuttals, but we used them up. Our next question comes from the audience. We'll begin with Ms. Ohly. The water and air are our natural resources and provide jobs long-term. But sand fracking proposals also affect these. What is your view on the sand fracking proposals, starting with Ms. Ohly?
Well, that is going to be a big question coming up in 2013, because there's going to be a lot of activity, not just in Olmsted County, but in southeastern Minnesota, not just southeastern Minnesota, but it's going to go from the east part of the state all the way to the Dakotas. There's a lot of emerging issues that are going to come up. We need to discuss how we're going to deal with it as a state. They're high users of water. The silica sand has proven to be an environmental issue, and we need all the players at the table to be discussing this as we go along. I believe that counties should be able to lead the charge at the local level, but if they need help, they can go to the state. Like we have asked the Department of Health to help us with the environmental piece right now. And as a partner, we'll be able to get through this. There's a lot of economic development that can take place. Right now, we're already mining silica sand, and so it's not something that's new to our region, but we really do need to talk it out.
Thank you, Mr. Senjem.
I think that the state of Minnesota can be helpful in terms of being a scientific resource, but in terms of the politics of silica sand and fracking, I think that best belongs in the counties. I think the more the state of Minnesota gets involved in decisions which are more rightly made at a local level, the worse we are. So I would advocate that decisions on planning and zoning and those sort of things be left to the counties where good people can come together and make these decisions in the community.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Mr. Senjem first. What legislative measures would you support to affect the future of agriculture in Minnesota?
Well, in terms of the future of agriculture, we've got to certainly look at, and I'm not sure necessarily that we need to do it legislatively, but we need to be carefully and critically looking at where we are in terms of, say, the dairy industry. Almost day by day, we lose the dairy industry in Minnesota. We've got to certainly look at things like, feedlot and so on and so forth, those kind of provisions, those kind of precautions. Don't suggest we need to loosen them at all. But we've got to simply work in working with our ag community, make sure that the agriculture works in Minnesota. It is one of our bigger industries, there's no question about it. I have been endorsed not only by the Farmers Bureau, but the Farmers Union. So you get Republican and Democrat there. I'm willing to work and have worked with both those organizations to their end goals. And that is not unusually related to animal health and care, things like that there. But as we look at agriculture in the bigger sense, I think we just have to be as supportive as we can. Part of that is township roads, local roads and bridges, things like that, which we've included readily in the bonding bill and will continue to do.
Thank you. Ms. Ohly?
Well, we are a very rich state when it comes to agriculture, and we have a lot of very wonderful lands that are in Olmsted County and all of southeastern Minnesota, highest and best use. They're very precious, and when we talk about land use, we always consider protecting those farmlands. I toured a farm a few months ago, one of the largest dairy operations in the state, and they are very, very highly regulated. And we need to make sure that when we look at changes in laws, that we are at the table with all the partners and we communicate with them and listen to their needs. We really need to protect the operations that we have in the state. And I was also talking to someone else this weekend that said that we are the most restrictive. When you look at some of the other states around us, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Iowa, and I would like to see that change as well.
Thank you. Our next question from the audience will begin with Ms. Ohly. Some school districts have needed to borrow money because of the state's diversion of their funds. Who pays the interest they face because of these borrowed funds?
What was that again? Who faces?
Who pays the interest?
Well, I would imagine the school districts have to pay for the interest. And luckily, our schools, I think down here, haven't had to do that, but I know that there are a lot of schools in the state that have had to do it. And it stresses their budgets even more than all of the other cuts that they've had in the future. And we can't do that again. We have to stop borrowing from our schools and make them whole, and give them the flexibility that they need to make the changes so that we can again be one of the best states in the nation in education.
Mr. Senjem?
The school district pays, so it seems to me, I'm a little vague on this, but there's a provision with the state government where they can get at least the loans on those, the interest rates are down, as I recall. But moreover, just thinking about this, we have in 2011 rather, there were basically $7 billion, which was put against the, $700 million, which was borrowed, if you will, from the schools. 318 million of that has been paid off. In addition to that, looking at the budget right now, 440 additional million are available to pay that off. So literally, by the time the legislature convenes in January, all of the school shift, if you will, from the 2011 session will have been paid off. And then all that remains are those from years past, and it's about 2.4 billion. But that is on a situation here right now where that will be paid off automatically on a statutory basis unless somebody's changed the statute. Every new, my time is up.
Thank you. Ms. Ohly?
I already answered it.
Oh, you did. I'm on the wrong question here, sorry. So I don't want to answer it again. Our next question will begin with Mr. Senjem. What legislative measures, if any, would you support to reform the welfare system?
I think that what we have done in the last couple of years, and Senator Nelson was a part of this in terms of what we call the analytics bill, looking for additional, looking for fraud, frankly, within the system, and using computers and analytics to do that. I think that's appropriate. Beyond that, I think we just look at eligibility. I'm not about to stand here tonight and suggest that we need any changes in that without more information. So I think what we have done in terms of analytics, looking for fraud, is a good start, and we needed to do that. Many other states have collected in addition, I think about 400 million is what we propose to collect, basically on eliminating additional fraud within that system. So that's a lot of money. But above and beyond that, I think we clean that up, we're going to be just fine.
Thank you, Ms. Ohly.
Well, when it comes to fraud, in Olmsted County, for every dollar we spend, we get $8 back. So it is an issue. But the bigger picture is that the Department of Human Services is still working on an old DOS-based system. I don't know if you all remember what DOS is, but it's very cumbersome. and it's not easily changed. So every time there's a change in the law, it's a manual change. And when I was a county commissioner, I did some shadowing, and I pretended like I needed to apply for services, and the stacks of paper that you would have to go through was absolutely daunting. To change the computer systems will not only eliminate duplication, it will build capacity for the future, and it will indeed eliminate fraud. So that is a priority, and I know that they're already starting to work on it, but it can't come soon enough.
Thank you. Our next question from the audience will begin with Ms. Ohly. What is your position on gun control?
I believe that everyone has the right to bear arms. I was from a farm in northern Minnesota, and I shot rifles, I went deer hunting, and I think that that's something that is embedded very deeply in our history in the nation, and I would continue to support that.
Mr. Senjem?
And I support the second amendment as well.
Okay. That was good and quick. Next question. We'll begin with Mr. Senjem. What needs to be done to even the revenue the state takes in as opposed to the cycling up and down that the current system causes?
I think that's pretty difficult because, we live on income taxes, we live on sales taxes, and our budget's going to react to what's going on economically within the state of Minnesota. So find a tax which is more level is difficult to do. I think the important thing, and of course we are there right now, we've got a $635 million reserve. That's a statutory number that we go to and we cling to. I think it's important that we keep that reserve in place, and if we keep that reserve in place, we're going to be able to, if you will, sort of mitigate the waves or the pits and the valleys in terms of moving forward. So I think we rely on a reserve. I'm not sure that we could find a tax that would be steady in up economies and down economies.
Thank you, Ms. Ohly.
Yeah, we really do need to have that tax discussion and everything being out on the table, and when that happens, we will be able to evaluate that as well. I do know one thing, that working in Olmsted County and talking to folks that get their tax statements, they really have been burdened. We cannot continue to keep putting the state's fiscal burdens on our taxpayers because it's regressive. And people are aging and they are on fixed incomes and they cannot continue to have those increases.
Thank you. I think we've come to the portion of our evening where you offer your closing statements. Thank you to the audience for offering so many good questions. By the draw of numbers, Mr. Senjem will go first with his closing statement and Ms. Ohly will go second.
Well, again, and pardon me, is this 1 minute? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you again for not only being here, and thank you to the television audience, which is will be looking at this. Let me just say this: I've been in the Minnesota Senate for 9 years now, and as I look forward and looking back at that, one of the things that is going to kind of go inside me a little bit. Not infrequently, I'll drive home on a Friday night late, and I'll maybe take a little different direction. And I'll go across the countryside and I'll drive down those roads and I'll look in those, not necessarily directly in those windows, but I'll see those lights in those windows. And I kind of wonder who's in there and what are they thinking about it and what are their challenges on any given day or any given year. And I think about my work in the Minnesota Senate, and I think about the fact that on that day in that week, I did the absolute best that I could have done for them. And that would be my goal going forward. Be elected and to do the absolute best that I can do for the constituency that I serve. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the honor to serve.
Thank you, Ms. Ohly.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Like Dave has said, he's been in the Senate for nearly 10 years now. He's been the Senate Minority Leader and the Senate Majority Leader. It's time that we have a senator that is a community leader. A senator that will look to the citizens for direction and not their party. A senator that will believe in the projects, promote the projects, and deliver the projects that we send them to St. Paul to accomplish. I'm a proven leader. I've worked hard for our county as an Olmsted County Commissioner for 8 years. I've raised the bar as a county commissioner, and I'll raise the bar as our senator. On September 17th, I was endorsed by the Post Bulletin over Senator Dave Senjem as the best candidate to represent Senate District 25. And I would be proud and honored to be your senator. So please vote for me on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, candidates, for participating tonight. It was great. Before we begin the next segment of our forum, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll begin again at 8:30.